The Philadelphia Eagles finally suffer a defeat at the hands of the Washington Commanders, seeing their undefeated run come to a halt at 8 games. What led to the Monday Night Meltdown? Find out all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Philadelphia Eagles are no longer undefeated as they suffer a loss at the hands of the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football, 32-21. I am Gino Camilleri, the host of the Locked On Eagles podcast, and we thank you for making the Locked On Eagles podcast your first listen each and every day. This edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePick projections, you get 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match on up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com/lockedon. And we are locked on the Philadelphia Eagles on their first loss of the year. Devastating is the only way to describe it. You win 8 games in a multitude of fashions. Coming from behind, playing with leads, leading at halftime, winning the turnover margin, winning the time of possession battle, winning when it comes to air yards, when it comes to passing yards, when it comes to rushing yards, when it comes to sacks. All the statistics, all the good numbers, they all looked good and gaudy coming into this game. But throw all that aside when you play an NFC East opponent. The Washington Commanders put together a near perfect game plan on how to beat the Philadelphia Eagles tonight. You could say what you want about the drama. There were some penalties late, some calls that maybe should have or shouldn't have been called. I'm never one that wants to decide the game with a referee, with somebody that has the stripes on, that doesn't have a jersey on. You have to control what you can control. Can't control the refs and how they call a game. You know what you can control? The turnover margin. And you lost that today 4-2. You know what you can control? The time of possession battle. You lost that 40-20. You know what you can control? Penalties. You lost that 7 for 75 to 5 for 58. You know what you can control? Running the football. You know how you lost that today? 154-96. All these little numbers, these statistics, they don't paint the whole picture. But in this game, it could paint a pretty good one of what just happened. The Eagles, for once, for the first time all year, lost the turnover battle. Yeah, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson came up in a big spot with a big pick in double coverage off Taylor Heinicke when they were close to the red zone. But the Eagles also turned it over multiple times. They turned it over 4 at the end of the day. One of them came on the last play of the game where Devontae Smith threw it backwards into the end zone, and Washington puts up another late touchdown, which for people who bet the game over at BetOnline, I'm sure if you took the over, you were pretty happy about it. But the other 3 just weren't great. You can't turn the ball over in the way that Quez Watkins did and expect to win the game. You can't throw that deep bomb to A.J. Brown and the defender comes up and makes a great play and you see the bounce went their way and expect to win the game. How they lost today was fundamentals. They lost by not getting off the field on 3rd down. They just could not stop Washington when it mattered. Situationally, on defense, it was bad. Running the football for Washington was the easiest thing in the world. where numbers might not paint the whole picture when it comes to this. They only average 3.1 yards on the ground per carry, but they also had 49 rushing attempts. 49 rushing attempts. The Eagles ran 47 plays all game. And Washington ran 81, and 49 of which were on the ground. The Eagles were already bad defending the run since Jordan Davis has gone out. And we have seen when teams have a running back who has good to very good contact balance, has good to very good ability to create yards after contact, plays with low pad level, plays with resilient leg drive. Last week it was Dameon Pierce. This week it was Brian Robinson. Those guys just put their heads down. We're gaining 4 to 5 yards per carry when it mattered, which set up Washington in these situations where all they had to do was pitch and catch to Terry McLaurin when the Eagles are playing soft zone coverage against a team with 3 very versatile weapons in Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson, all of who came up in big moments today. Against a defense where Jonathan Gannon has come under some criticism over the past 2 years that he has not put together, let's say, even a competent game plan to take down quarterbacks that might not be in that upper tier, might not be in that second tier, but are just in that clump, that average tier. Last week against Davis Mills, there were some situations where you're saying, okay, maybe Philip Dorsett shouldn't be able to beat us here. Well, today, you were taking on Terry McLaurin, who is one of the easily top 5 wide receivers in the National Football League. For the quarterback play that he has and the production that he has, hats off to him. He has put together a phenomenal young career. He won every matchup today against Bradberry, against Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, against Darius Slay. What Washington did was deserving of a win in the National Football League. That was an NFC East win. Why I always hate picking these games is because of what happened tonight. You never know if the 4th place team in the NFC is going to muck it up, beat you in the offensive line battle, muck it up in the trenches all day long, throw the shots they have to throw, hit the intermediate areas when they need to, take control of the football when it comes to your quarterback play, and not have a sporadic quarterback play like Carson Wentz had the last time you played the Eagles. Taylor Heinicke and what he was able to do showed the flaws that this Philadelphia Eagles team has. And if they let it happen today against a 4th place Washington team, what makes you believe that it won't happen when it comes playoff time and you're playing Minnesota? You're playing Dallas for the 3rd time. You're potentially playing the Giants for the 3rd time. It might be good that this came when it came. In round 10, right before the decision rounds, right before you're making a stretch run to get the 1 seed. Maybe this knockdown came at the right time. It was ugly, but there's always good things to take out of a loss. But we have to get more into the bad of what happened tonight because we have been too nice to this Eagles team the first 9 weeks of the season for what they have done. We really have to hone in on what just happened on Monday Night Football in front of a national stage to a division opponent. We'll get back to that. But before we do that, we have a message from our friends over at Total Wine. Today's show, the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks, Total Wine, for sponsoring this episode this holiday. Find what you love at Total Wine and more. With so many great bottles to choose from, it is easy to find a new favorite single barrel bourbon or the perfect gift for everyone on your list. With some help from a friendly guide, and with all the confidence of knowing that you found something special for the lowest price. You don't have to go into a convenience store. You don't have to walk into one of those big box liquor store. Just go to Total Wine. They will hook you up. Curbside pickup and delivery in most areas. TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly. Be 21. Welcome on back, everybody, to a sad episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast. First loss of the season. I'm Gino Camilleri, the host of Locked On Eagles, and we thank you for making the Locked On Eagles podcast your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only on Locked On, and only where the Locked On Network can provide. Locked On Sports Today is available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. I will be hopping on there tomorrow morning, recapping what just happened tonight on Monday Night Football. The meltdown on Monday night, I will call this. This one was bad. From start to finish, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. But hopefully, it was a humbling moment for this Philadelphia Eagles team. Everybody, myself included, probably got a little too caught up in the undefeated hype. Are the Eagles a good football team still? Absolutely. Does this game cement who they are? Does it hinder what they have done so far through the first 9 weeks? No. But what does it do? It exposes some flaws. And sometimes, when things are going right and you think they might not break, well, you find out one of the legs on your chair is loose, you lean back, and down you go. I'm sure everybody has done that in your backyard. You're just hanging out with some friends. You lean back on your plastic folding chair or your plastic lawn chair that you have, and crack goes that leg. Well, that leg had a fault in it. It had something there prior that was underlying that led to it to break. So let's talk about some of these underlying conditions of what led to tonight. Let's start with the offense. I think it might be a little bit easier to clear up what happened with the offense tonight. In some spots, they look very good. Late in the game, Quez Watkins, Jalen Hurts, they finally connect after a bunch of weeks. You're saying, oh, man, they're in the red zone finally. Quez Watkins, he gets back up, fumbles the football. Kind of ends the game right there. What the Eagles didn't do throughout this game was balance. They didn't balance the run and the pass. In the first half, they were way too pass happy. Way too pass happy. Yes, Jalen Hurts can throw the football. We understand that now. But what you have to realize is how Lou and I always say, you could turn on this run game at any time, this elite running game, that tonight, even in a game where you're saying, oh, they lost the rush game battle, well, on the ground, you're still averaging 4.7 yards per pop with Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell. You're getting 5 yards a clip, but you only gave the ball to them 4 times in the first half. So that, if you do some math, equates to 20 yards. You need your running backs to be more involved in the first half, right off the get, because you shouldn't have to turn on that switch to be one of the top rushing offenses in football. That thing should be on all the time. Here's an analogy for you. Ever since me and my fiance moved into our house, our fan in our bedroom is hot wired, and it won't turn off. I, for one, love the fan. I was sleeping with the fan on all the time. It doesn't turn off, though. It's always working. That's what the Eagles' run game should be. It should always be on. And I think right from the get-go, establishing that we are going to play bully ball and not vice versa. It was weird to see the Eagles get bullied around today. It was strange. We haven't seen that all year. And I think a lot of it has to do with that mentality that you can instill with your bigs on the offensive line. Go out there, run the football, and then boom, We open up things down the field. We hit Quez Watkins. We hit Devontae Smith. We hit Dallas Goedert. We hit A.J. Brown. Was A.J. Brown on his game tonight? Absolutely not. Was Devontae Smith on his game tonight? He had some moments, but he still had a couple drops. Dallas Goedert didn't look the best that we've ever seen Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts still was sporadic in some moments, dropped his eyes at times. Maybe he could have hung in there for a little bit longer. But you take all of those lessons, the balance, the lack of the pass in the second half with too much run in the second half, when it should have been vice versa. It should have been balanced, should have started hot with the run game, set the tone, continued with that pass game. Because the identity, I think, now with the Eagles is, we've talked about they can use the pass to open up the run, but this run game is too good to ignore. You have to use it. And it's a tone setter. Because if you look what Washington did on the other side of the football, they went into this game and said, you know what? We might not have the talent. But clearly they did. We might not have the wins. But they didn't care. They threw that out the window. It's an NFC East matchup, and you always have to. You know what they said? Okay, Philadelphia Eagles, you have 8 wins. Doesn't matter. You have to go 1-0 today. We're going to run this ball all over you. We're going to control the clock. We're going to pick up first downs when it matters. We're not going to allow you to get off the field. Outside of one interception, we're going to protect the ball. And you know what did that? The offense of the Washington Commanders. Think about that. The offense of the Washington Commanders. Should they have the upside on you? You saw what you did last game against them. Thought you held your own. Thought you had a pretty decent game plan. Well, today, didn't turn out that way. That game plan didn't work. Why didn't it work? What made it all come crashing down? That crack in the foundation. That's what we're going to finish up the show with. We have a lot to talk about this week, but we could not end this show without talking about the massive crack in the foundation, which is Jonathan Gannon. We will talk about that to finish up this Monday edition of the show. But before we do that, this episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, 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 PrizePicks. Say it 5 times fast and use it easy. It's simple, quick, and if you love sports and if you love taking on a single opponent, you can take on yourself in PrizePicks. Because how does this work? Tell me about it. Well, all you do with PrizePicks, you take 2 to 5 players. Tonight, you could have taken any Washington Commanders, any Philadelphia Eagle, or if you don't even watch football, why would you be listening to this show? But if you like other sports as well, you can bet on some crazy things. Put in some picks for some crazy sports over at PrizePicks. You could do MMA, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, women's college basketball, esports, NASCAR, tennis. The list goes on and on and on. You can win up to 10 times your money by picking 2 to 5 players to score over or under their projected total. You can make picks in under 60 seconds. You can make safe and easy withdrawals, and they're currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Today, download the PrizePicks app to go to prizepicks.com if you don't want to download the app and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 by using the promo code LOCKEDON. If you put in $100, they'll give you $100. You put in $50, they'll give you $50, so on and so forth. And how do you get that? You get it by using the promo code LOCKEDON. On the screen here for our YouTube users, for those listening, it's LOCKEDON at prizepicks.com. All right, everybody, finishing up this Monday night edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. And we thank you for making the Locked On Eagles podcast your first listen each and every day or evening or whenever you listen to the show. Just thank you for tuning in wherever you get your podcasts. I know this one was tough for you to click play. I know it was tough for me to hit record, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes finding the cracks in your foundation can help you patch them up and move forward. Because if it's not evident that Jonathan Gannon is a problem for this team, tonight was the slap in the face that makes it ever so clear. I can't sit here tonight and say I have confidence in the Eagles' defense to win them a game. The Eagles' offense, outside of one performance, where they scored 20 points tonight, they scored 21. Most of the time, they're scoring north of 24 points. The defense is holding teams to around 18.5 points a game. Well, tonight, they allowed 26 points. They allowed a boatload of yards on the ground. They allowed a boatload of yards in the air. They allowed a boatload of third down conversions. Darius Slay didn't look himself. James Bradberry didn't look himself. Darius Slay looked confused in some zone coverage looks. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson got bullied in the air by Terry McLaurin. Nobody could tackle Brian Robinson. And when you needed something different, when you needed a change-up, when you needed to stop just throwing fastballs right down the plate and letting them hit it every single time, playing off zone coverage and playing man by putting a safety on Terry McLaurin instead of allowing Darius Slay to shadow him, and all these mind-bending decisions, what does it come down to? At the end of the day, what is it? Has it been there for a while? It's been there for 2 years. Jonathan Gannon. Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen have done a good job with the personnel that they have. Even last year, when you would say that the offensive personnel probably wasn't as good as the defensive personnel, the offense made it work. This year, there's not an excuse. There's no excuse in the world Jonathan Gannon can give us. Yeah, Jordan Davis is injured. We get it. We get it. We know it. Everybody knows it. Every single person that decided to make today their first game that they've watched of the Eagles all season long and had to tweet out that, oh, Jordan Davis clearly makes the Eagles rush defense better. We know. We know. We've been watching football games. And you know who should know better than everybody? The defensive coordinator. And you know who should know how to put his players in a position to succeed and not put Darius Slay in zone coverage and not play off 7-8 yards when you just need to keep everything underneath and rally to the ball when you have linebackers that are good at cleaning things up in those short to intermediate areas. Who is that on? The defensive coordinator. When you need to find a way to hit home at Taylor Heinicke in the first half and get off the field when you're just getting grinded out drive after drive after drive, and the time of possession battle is nearly 5-1 in favor of Washington, but you do the same thing over and over and over again. And what is the definition of insanity? Exactly that. And who is that on? The defensive coordinator. I've been on the tail of Michael Clay, special teams coordinator, all year. Jonathan Gannon, he's next in my sights. What more does he need? He has 2 all-pro corners. Yeah, you're without Avonte Maddox. Adversity, it stinks. Look at the Buffalo Bills. They haven't had Tre'Davious White all year. They're without Micah Hyde. They're making it work. The Eagles have been without Avonte Maddox for 2 games, and they're going to be without him for 3 more. Can't tell me you don't have a plan. Can't tell me you won't adapt, because you have to adapt. Jonathan Gannon is stuck in the mud. He's trying to find a way out with no rope. How do you fix it? How do you get him to realize that this isn't the formula? I would love to be a fly on the wall in the meetings this week to hear what Nick Sirianni has to say about the defense. Because you're at home in a game that is huge. It's massive. After what happened this weekend, Minnesota beats Buffalo. Minnesota's 8-1. The Giants once again win. They're 7-2. They're right on your heels in the division. Dallas, yeah, they drop a game, but they're right there. You still have to play them twice. You know that you could take this massive lead after having 10 days off to prepare for Taylor Heinicke. They didn't make things too crazy tonight. They played within what Taylor Heinicke could do. They played within what they knew their offense could do. It's almost as if Jonathan Gannon doesn't have an understanding of what his defense can do. And when that's the case, tonight is the result. Can it happen again? Oh, it can, because it's happened before. The crack in the foundation has always been there. Can they fix it before the whole thing comes crumbling down? Tonight was a good indicator that maybe they should get some home insurance. Maybe they should find another plan. They need to find a way. Because this is Washington. What's going to happen when you have to play Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, or Tampa Bay with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and Tom Brady, or even in a couple weeks when you play the Packers, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Christian Watson? What are you going to do? Are you going to fold? Are you just going to say, this is what we're doing, square peg into a round hole? Or are you going to find a way to fix it? There's no reinforcements. Trade deadline's over. Gannon got everything he needed. They brought in Robert Quinn at the deadline. They bring in CGJ. They sign Hassan Riddick. What more do they need? They need to execute. They need to get back to fundamentals. They need to tackle. They need to keep things underneath. They need to understand situational football. And they have to realize that sometimes the defense has to come up and win a game for this football team. Because if the offense doesn't have control of the football, if Washington controls it for 2-1, 40 minutes to 20 minutes, and you turn the ball over 3 times, you need to find a way for your defense to come up big, because the payroll, the amount of assets, and everything that is on that defense comes down to the defensive coordinator putting them in the right position to succeed. Shane Steichen, Nick Sirianni, they figured it out, but 1/3 of your coordinators does not make this thing go. It's on to Indianapolis, but we'll have a lot more to talk about to finish up Washington week. The last time they will play them all season long, unless something crazy happens where they have to play them in the playoffs. We'll see. We never know with the NFL. And clearly we have no idea of who is truly good, great, or even average at this point. But that's why we love talking here at the Locked On Eagles podcast. And we thank you for making it your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. I will be on there tomorrow breaking down tonight's action. The Locked On Sports Today podcast is the biggest stories of the day, plus instant live reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. You can find the Locked On Eagles podcast anywhere where you can find your shows: Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Find us in visual form on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button. It helps us get more views, helps get the show out there. If you're supporting us, if you've been listening to us for an episode, 10, 20, we're nearing 1,000 episodes at this point, help continue to grow the show, because there's no better team than the Philadelphia Eagles when it comes to the fans. Win or lose, you guys are always here for us, and we appreciate you tuning in each and every episode. We will be back this week with 4 more shows. Lou will be back after taking that trip to see the Eagles lose here on Monday Night Football. The Eagles are 8-1 on to Indianapolis. We'll see what happens next week. But for the first time all year, the Philadelphia Eagles suffer a loss at the hands of the Washington Commanders, 32-21. I'm Gino Camilleri, signing off for now. Catch me on Twitter at GC24_football. Follow the mothership at Locked On Birds. Follow Lou at DiBiase LOE. That'll do it for me. Have a great rest of your evening. Fly, Eagles, fly.